Welcome to the second part of this episode of BeyondTech with our guest, Manuj Aggarwal. In case you missed the first part of the discussion, you can find it by clicking the link in the top right corner. The different discussion points are all timestamped throughout the episode, so you can freely move around as you see fit. That's a good place to move on from the general fears and talk a bit about the most prevalent one, the most sci-fi driven one, if you will, that we touched on a bit. And that's the concept of a super AI that will doom the human race. The Terminator movies, The Matrix, iRobot, I think is a good one where it's, oh, you're bad for yourself, so I'm just going to imprison you. That's the one I feel personally is the most realistic of the bunch because it's just based on everything we were talking about. AI is saying, oh, we're killing each other so often. We're the problem. So if you just imprison us, we will stay alive. If its imperative is to keep humans alive above all else, happiness doesn't play a role, then that makes the most sense. But I think before we get into the juicy bits of that, I want to talk about the different technical aspects because I think that's something that people don't always have full clarity on. So if you can help us define what AGI is as it relates to super intelligence, especially what the differences between these concepts are, definitely as they relate to the singularity, for instance, and other factors like this.
So artificial intelligence generally is very good at doing one thing, meaning I can train it to self-drive a car, but that intelligence cannot cook food. AGI means artificial general intelligence. It's type of intelligence that can do many things, just like humans can. So humans can drive a car, humans can cook food, humans can take a walk, humans can think. We can do so many things. AGI is reflecting a human capability to do many things. It will be able to do multiple tasks. Now, super intelligence will be basically when AGI becomes so strong that it itself starts to evolve on itself. So the growth of intelligence becomes exponential because machines will be able to think further and faster, and that will be exponential rise in their intelligence. Ultimately, it will achieve some sort of super intelligence. And singularity is the point where intelligence becomes more intelligent than human being. I think that will be the point where we will start approaching that super intelligence because intelligence will start to improve at an exponential rate at that point.
Yeah, it's a point of no return, if you will, because once it's there, and especially if we've connected it to the internet or it's stored somewhere, then it could go back and reproduce whatever algorithmic data that it has, whatever personality we've essentially given it or it's created for itself. And then we can't do anything about it. What are your thoughts on this? I know you're more positive than negative, but are there any fears that you personally have, especially when we're talking about, firstly, an AI that is equally or smarter than humans? And secondly, an AI that is connected to the internet, so it has access to every data point in humanity. Now, we can't consume the internet. But when you're talking about exascale computing, when you're talking about quantum computing, which this kind of AI would have to be tapped into, then it can basically read and consume, if you will, the entirety of the internet. So it knows everything from the darkest, deepest corners of the internet to cat videos. What are your thoughts on this? What are your fears of this, if you haven't?
So fears are that bad people will make use of that technology to do bad things. I don't believe AI itself, again, I don't believe technology will be nefarious or malicious enough to say, okay, I have now access to all the data, so let me teach them a lesson. It doesn't sound plausible for electrons to behave in that way. Just computer code running through silicon chips will suddenly develop this notion that I should teach them a lesson. I should take my revenge. That doesn't sound right to me. But some people can start to use it to, let's say, make more deadly weapons or hack into banks easier or something along those lines. And again, for those type of things, we will develop counter effective tools to catch these people, to safeguard our systems. There'll be rules and regulations to punish people who do these kind of things. So you can treat also this technology AI as a weapon as well now. So if you use the weapon in the wrong way, you get punished even today. So it's the same analogy. Time and again, I think that's the theme that is emerging. All of these things, if you look at AI as a tool, we can find similar analogies for that even today.
Okay. But you don't think the AI itself can be a force for good or evil? It's just a tool.
Yeah, it's just a tool. The other thing is, one other effect that I can think of is again dependent upon humans, which is this is going to be a huge change in a compressed period of time. So IBM CEO has said that AI is going to add about $10 trillion to the world economy by 2030. Today, the world economy is $96 trillion. So that means more than 10% of the world economy will be added in the next 7 years. So that's a very drastic, very fast change. That may cause some socioeconomic unrest. That will be the side effect of this. Now, if humans can come together, just maybe COVID was a dress rehearsal for all
Right.
people coming together and helping each other, or governments giving money to people and all that. So those type of situations may be handled that way. But the technology waking up one day and saying, now I'm going to do this and that shows how much people underestimate human nature. What do they understand about human nature?
You said it in the beginning. We have had wars. We have all this trauma, which causes us to have more wars.
Yeah.
If you think of the singularity as having access to all human data, so maybe he will not experience the trauma, but he will know the lessons and he will understand that this is always part of human evolution. We have wars, we have strife. Now, I have no idea how it's going to understand that and elaborate on that and expand on that in its cognitive capability. But you could foresee that being negative or positive. It could be partial. It could be, okay, I don't care. They have done these things. They have done these things. They have cured cancer and they've also killed a million people. What is the equivalent here? But maybe being a machine, it tries to quantify, okay, more people have died due to war than any other cause in human history, for example. I don't know if that's true. And so it has a propensity towards that. And it's okay, if I'm going to be a part of humanity, I need to emulate that. You don't foresee that being a possibility. You don't think it's going to do that at all.
See, okay. First thing is war is always going to be there. I
Mhm.
don't think war will be eliminated. But if you see human evolution, earlier wars used to be bloody and cruel, very very cruel. Now we have international rules on war. We have war, but we have created rules for it, and we take people to international court if they break the rule of war. So you should imagine that in the future the wars will be bloodless, right? It could be
Okay.
more emotional war, it could be more giving stress war, it could be, again, unfortunately, some danger of biological weapons. The traditional kind of war of dropping bombs and all that may be over. There's because I'll share a story. A couple of months ago I visited a jail where there were people locked up for decades. So they wanted to improve their life. They were doing course on entrepreneurship, planning a business when they get out. So we went there as mentors to help them. But I found that even with very limited resources, they had big vision. They had a lot of ideas. And a lot of people I meet outside, even with all the freedom, they have very narrow ideas. So the emotional jail is much more constrained than the physical jail. So the war of the future could be a mental war rather than a physical war.
Okay. That's a tough one to think about, but that makes sense. I think it evolves. But wouldn't that give AI even more of an advantage then?
Absolutely, absolutely.
If it
See,
controls
this is
social media and our information flow?
yeah. So that's why it is so important for people to get involved. The more people get involved, the more they can use it, the more they understand it, the more empowered they are. So this is why same thing applies. Like people with resources, they understand this world better. They'll start using it faster. But then if we spread the message, which is what one of my missions is, spread the message as quickly as possible, as far wide as possible, so that people can take advantage of it in time and stay competitive.
And what role do you think regulation could play in all of this? Are you a fan of, okay, we need to regulate the industry to some degree? Or like I've heard people say regulators don't usually have the know how and understanding of these types of technology. So what they end up doing is they actually hurt the growth of the industry significantly, or they move these industries somewhere where there's no regulation. So it's online. Like you could do it from the Bahamas, no one's going to stop you.
See, this is such a ubiquitous technology that it's going to be worldwide phenomena. It's like the internet. Again, nobody controls it, but there is some control. So it's going to be worldwide phenomena, and then there's going to be, I think, lightweight restrictions or legislation. But I believe it will be more constrained on the local level. So local level, they will say, okay, you cannot use AI for this, you cannot use AI for that. At the international level, I believe it will be like, you cannot use it for destruction. You cannot use it to kill water supply to a region or something. Whatever we think are reasonable regulations, I believe will be there for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense. I think we've gone enough on the negatives, on the doom and gloom side of AI. Hopefully, we've assuaged some of the fears that people might have on AI and what it can do. Maybe we've created some new fears. Who knows? I think there's always a propensity for that. But let's move to the positives. And I think that's where really this gets to be fun. So the last thing we talked about was AGI, singularity. What are your thoughts on the positive ramification of this? If AI is smarter than us, I think you're gonna have some more ideas, at least on the positive.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
can that mean for us?
See, that is the age of abundance. Okay. Because as I said, throughout human history, we have been just slaving away to collect more resources and become more comfortable. Now, the world economy, as I said, $96 trillion. I believe $60 trillion is spent just on the services side, meaning banking and insurance and all of these supporting institutions which support the production of the goods that we need to survive. So all of this will be offloaded to AI, then everything will become more affordable. And now, in that scenario, we won't have that much time pressure. We will have hopefully less stress. And then again, enjoyment will become more of a regular thing in life. And as we solve the big problems, then we can satisfy our bigger curiosity, look for extraterrestrial life or move to another planet or whatever people's big dreams. I don't know, go for. I all my examples are space related today. I don't know why,
For
but
it.
yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. You will be able to go after your passions that you were not able to. Maybe climb Mount Everest, or maybe go on a world trip, maybe invent something new that can change the way that we live. So all these possibilities will be there.
Do you think AI can help us get to Mars, basically? Is that what you're trying to say?
AI is going to have to be there. No question. If an AI can do the calculation in trillionth time faster, why will we refuse it in a scenario where we are going to Mars?
Have you watched 2001 Space Odyssey?
Yeah, I've watched it. I'm actually watching another one, Don't Look Up on Netflix.
I've seen that yet.
It's about an asteroid hitting Earth. It's very interesting.
Okay. So AI could essentially also help save humanity, basically, as opposed to just destroy. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. I believe that will be the case. I believe we are getting into a very positive era of abundance because people will be happier, they will be more cooperative, they will be more creative, and we will see some amazing things happening in the future for sure.
Makes sense. I think I touched on this on the first episode when I spoke to Derek. We were talking about, okay, if we don't need to think about food anymore, we don't need to think about anything. Yeah, maybe population control becomes a bit of a factor, but you just live your life. You don't have to work. You don't have to think about money. You just do whatever you want. If you give most people that possibility, I don't know how many people would really enjoy it as it stands. Like maybe we need to adapt. I think you said it perfectly. COVID maybe was almost a dress rehearsal for this kind of thing. I loved being on my own sometimes and having a routine and doing things certainly. But I know that a lot of people went crazy. A lot of people were trying to find the same interactions virtually with family and friends. Like they weren't able to do it. They weren't able to replicate it. So it was driving them crazy. It almost takes us an evolutionary transition period to get used to, okay, I don't need to do this and this anymore. Like, I don't need to book my own meetings. I don't need a virtual assistant to book my meetings. I just click Teams or whatever calendar app that you use. And that does it for me. That's it. This entire interaction that would have taken 3 or 4 calls or emails or WhatsApps now doesn't need to exist. It's the same construct. I think it's almost like we need to reevaluate how we look at the world from that perspective.
It's happening, yeah, slowly. It will happen slowly. We won't notice. One day If I just stop today, my life stops today, and I come back in 5 years, like in time travel, I'll notice a big difference. But slowly, when it
Yeah.
happens day by day, we don't notice.
So true. That's so true. That makes perfect sense. I want to dive deeper into the nitty gritty now. Let's get into the technical trenches of AI, if you will. So when we're talking about AI, it's a conversation I've had a couple of times with some of the experts in the industry. Something that maybe most people don't realize it, but most types of AI that exist today are either single modal or mode to mode. So what we mean by that is when AI systems like GPT and DALL-E are very popular at the moment, most of them only use one of the senses, if you will. So for example, ChatGPT is text to text, Alexa is audio to audio. And then the other side of it is the ones that are one directional. So you have, for example, text to image like DALL-E, or you have text to video like Synthesia, which literally you tell it, this is the text, this is the transcript, make me a video. One part of that to me is when I think about all these fears people have, oh, tomorrow we're going to have AGI. This is still a long way away. We're not even done with multimodal generative AI. Let's hold our horses. But more importantly, I want to think, what is stopping us from having multimodal generative AI? What are the challenges and considerations that developers are taking and need to?
I believe it's the compute power, first of all, to have that kind of human mind is one of the most complex machines in the universe known to man. To replicate that, we really need a lot of compute power, and to be able to do all this in real time and be able to look at all the permutations that exist in the universe. So it's a
Mhm.
lot of compute power. And we are just getting started. The technology industry, silicon chip was invented maybe not even 50 years ago, as compared to other industries. The energy industry has been around for hundreds of years, the construction industry, automobile industry. So they have had so much time to mature. We are just at very initial stages. The progress that we have made already is tremendous. Within maybe 10 years, we will be approaching this threshold where we will have multiple senses. Like I talk to people who are working on sound related stuff. One guy I know of through a common friend, they are working on making AI algorithms for smell and taste.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah.
I
So
didn't know that one. Okay.
yeah. So the thing is, work is going on. You'll start seeing all this start to come up and everything. And I think it's happening so fast, even I'm surprised. I think it's not going to take more than 10 years.
I'm guessing with exascale computing becoming more and more prevalent now, that's going to be an accelerator for
Yeah,
these kind
yeah.
of things,
And
right?
then
Those,
obviously quantum computing will be huge for this. It will be humongous because right now with binary systems, we only can look at reality in white or black. But we all know
right.
reality is multiple shades of gray. So the quantum computing will actually be able to give us access to all the possibilities between this and that. So it's going
Yeah.
to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Makes perfect sense. I think that's going to leapfrog us when we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
the full capabilities. How far away do you think it is to have a generative AI that can use all the senses and give you responses in all the senses then?
Yeah, as I said, I think 10 years. I think 10 years.
For all of them combined?
Yeah.
Really? Just
Yeah.
10?
10.
I was not expecting that. Okay. So you're going to be Alexa, make the room smell like cookies, and it's going to be able to do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And then we'll say, okay, before the cookies, just cook me a meal, just a medium rare steak and
It's going to do
whatever.
that too?
I
In
believe
10
that.
years.
You
Serious.
have you seen the recent example that Elon Musk said? Like that they're building a robot. I forget the name. The Tesla Motor Company is building a
Yeah.
robot, and he has said that that product is going to be the most of the net worth of Tesla. That robot. So you can
Yeah.
imagine how he's thinking. So you can extrapolate. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but the way that things are going, I believe we will be there.
I think if a robot can cook me a steak in 10 years, I'm taking you out to dinner at an AI restaurant
Yeah.
and we celebrate. But 10 years seems a bit too close to
No,
this timeline.
there are restaurants where they are completely served by robots. There is no
Mhm.
person. So cooking a steak is what? You have to read the temperature. And I believe there are automated steak ovens available today, but they are very expensive. Very
That's a
expensive.
good point, actually.
Yeah,
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 yeah. No,
yeah. Because
it's
they
not a
can even
far
probably
fetched. Yeah,
see the temperature with their
yeah,
eyes
exactly.
rather than
Yeah,
having to insert a pin in there and then like they don't need to think. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
fair enough. Okay. One of the things that I'm interested in when it comes to AI is the idea of emergent abilities and capabilities that come out of AI. The idea that I think Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was saying this in a recent video, where they're saying that people think about AI as electricity. You pump in more input and you get more output out of it. But that's not necessarily the case, because a lot of times what happens is you give an AI algorithm certain things, you give it certain tasks, and it perfects that task. But over time, as it gets better and better at that task, it learns how to do completely new tasks that you didn't know. And I think the example they gave is with ChatGPT, they were always asking it to respond in English. And so they were computing with it in English, and it got better and better at responding in English. And then it got to a point where you could communicate with it in Persian, and it could respond to you in Persian, which they had never tried to do. It was not part of the plan. So it just came out of it. It learned the skill
Yeah.
on its own.
Yeah.
How does that happen? How the heck does that happen?
So again, the way you look at the world is this. When you break down the existence, there are only few fundamental truths, few fundamental elements, few basic constructs of matter. Everything else originates in this world by combining different elements. So you mix water with earth, you get this. You mix sunlight with this, you get this. You mix one thing with the other, you get new ideas. So ideas, when they mix together, they give rise to new ideas, right? The problem is that as humans, we are always going very deep in one field, and our thinking becomes siloed, and we are thinking about one thing very deeply. But with AI, you can put in any kind of knowledge, and it is all mixing together. So as it evolves, there will be a pathway that it discovers that does something better. It's just like how we evolve when our DNA matches, right? So it picks up the most of the qualities from our fathers, most of the qualities from our mother, but there's what's maybe tiny little changes that happen. So it's the same thing with AI. Again, this is all my speculation. Obviously, I don't know what is happening inside the algorithm, but that's what I speculate, that it when it is doing so many iterations of figuring out what is the right pattern, one iteration could be like such that it combines all that data into a mysterious way to produce a new output, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think if you think about it from a trial and error perspective, right? It keeps trying and trying to do something. And if I ask you to get from point A to B, you're going to try everything you can. And I want you to drive from A to B. But maybe you're so advanced that instead of driving from A to B, you're like, oh, I'm going to fly to B.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you, no, I didn't want that. I want you to drive there. Even though you've learned how to fly, I'm limiting you and I'm telling you, no, now drive there.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get to B, you don't just know how to drive to B, you know how to fly to B.
Exactly.
And so you've already evolved beyond that through your trial
exactly.
process.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost sometimes we should treat AI the same way we treat children. Don't tell your kids you can and can't do this. Say, I want this from you.
Yeah.
How can you get that to me? Let them compute on their own and strategize how they could potentially give you that something.
Exactly.
And that makes me think of maybe theory of mind ideas where the AI has a strategic thinking of, I think, 9-year-old now, ChatGPT does at least. But over time, that's going to evolve beyond humans. And by the time you get to, let's say, 45, if it does, and I don't foresee that taking too long, then it's already smarter than most people. Because if you have the strategic thinking of a 45-year-old, you're like, so
I
you're
will
smart.
argue even 20-year-old will be really.
But strategic thinking, I think,
Yeah.
is one of those skills that definitely you get better. And
I
it's
good,
almost
but I have
strategic, yeah.
I have unfortunately have met enough 45 years old that I think the strategy. Yeah.
Fair, though. I get what you mean. Okay, I think you're quite bullish on where AI is going and how fast it's moving. But where do you see the next big development coming? If we consider ChatGPT to be the biggest one to date, or the latest of the biggest ones that we've had, do you think we can expect another revolutionary shift with the next GPT model, or is there going to be another thing that comes in, or is it maybe 10 years down the line, this multimodal system?
Yeah,
Where do you
yeah.
think that?
I think the big shift will be multimodal. Now, the GPT models and similar models will continue to get better. I think they will. One thing will happen is ChatGPT is like a general platform used for everything. I think we will start to see specialized platforms like ChatGPT for finance, ChatGPT for healthcare, ChatGPT for law, because Humans, they want convenience. We want familiarity. We want to have specialization. So ChatGPT has built a platform, and now it will be like verticals built on top of it. And then when video, audio start to mix together, like that whole metaverse start to comes together, then that will be the next wave of technology. So I believe that's how we will evolve.
Okay, interesting. So you think it'll go more specialized rather than generalized? What's
Yeah.
to stop the
Yeah.
current chat GPT to do all those things though? If it has access to all the data sets, what's the
See,
limitation?
it's like saying that I can make a list of all the websites in a spreadsheet, and then I can manually remember, okay, if I want to look up something, I go to this website rather than using Google. I can keep track of all this manually. Rather than hiring my accountant, I can keep track of all the entries myself. Using a generic platform like ChatGPT will need you to learn specialized skills, perhaps, which may be easier for you to learn in your specific domain, or that system will be optimized to understand your language in a better way.
Ah, okay. I get what you mean.
Right.
It's more about okay, how you communicate with it. So if you say, okay, do this for me, then it knows you have that technical perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that the same as creating a prompt
Yeah, yeah,
threads
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
knows your persona? It's basically
Exactly,
that, okay.
exactly.
And I
So,
suppose it'll be faster as well because it
yeah,
has only access to the law
yeah, yeah.
side of things for a lawyer. So
Exactly,
it'll give you
exactly.
that response very
Yeah,
quick.
yeah. People pay for convenience all the time, right? People pay for
Right, right.
personalization all the time. So that's what will start to evolve. I'm sure there may be another surprise coming. Apple introduced this new headset just recently. It was sort of expected, but some of the features were not expected. So people have very sharp reaction to that. So let's say that,
It's so expensive.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know how mass market that's going to be.
Yeah. So let's say some revolutionary product comes along tomorrow that nobody expected, that can change the world. But yeah, so far I'm seeing with after GPT, I think the mixture of all the senses and then specialization will be the key.
Do you think the shift towards AI will continue at this pace? Because I mean, if you were to ask people maybe a year or so ago, they would be like metaverse is the next big thing in technology because that's what Facebook was doing. That's what Mark Zuckerberg was pushing so hard. And now with ChatGPT, even Meta is increasing their investment in AI more than in the metaverse. Can we expect maybe another shift or a move backwards? Could this AR headset from Apple move things back to the metaverse maybe or
See, we should look at numbers. My opinion, your opinion doesn't really count. Let's look at the
right?
numbers, right? So ChatGPT came out in 5 days, they got 1 million users. It's been about 6 months. They have more than 1.2 billion users in 6 months. So numbers don't lie, right? So we can look at the number of headsets that were sold, probably few million. That's it. So
Yeah.
uh,
Even if they gave it away for free, it
yeah,
wouldn't be a
I know,
billion.
I know.
Like,
So human cannot be bothered putting these expensive things on their head. We don't want to be constrained. We just want to be free. We want to use easy to use things. So the convenience and the ability to solve real problems that AI has demonstrated. So it will continue to grow, in my opinion. Now, God knows what regulators will do. There are some countries who have blocked ChatGPT. There are some companies who have blocked ChatGPT. So you never know. There could be a surprise tomorrow that somebody says, "Oh, okay, this is just shut it down," or God knows. If that happens, then yeah. Otherwise, new technologies will keep coming out, keep evolving now.
so what you're saying is convenience plays a key role. Like ChatGPT is so accessible. That's why it's so prevalent. If this AR headset was like the Google Glass, Google Lens was meant to be
Yeah,
way back when, I think it was almost 10 years ago we were talking about that.
yeah,
So it's just a pair of glasses you put on and
yeah,
you can do all the
yeah,
same
yeah,
things with it. It
yeah,
doesn't need computing power
yeah,
externally. It can do whatever. Then maybe everyone would tap into it like we have, everyone has a cell phone. Realistically, we're
yeah.
okay to have a hardware assistant. It's just that it's not so,
Yeah, but it could happen. What I'm saying is we should look at the number. Is it happening or not? I don't see the evidence of it happening.
right. Okay.
So AI is happening. So obviously it's solving the problem and it will continue to do. I don't think it'll stop abruptly, is what I'm saying.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. I know you want to talk about the numbers, but I'm going to keep pushing you away from the numbers. What about emotions? Do you think AI can ever develop feelings, emotions? Maybe let's go as far as to even say a soul.
This is going into my spiritual work. See, once you really understand what is soul, once you experience it, because the problem is most people don't know the definition of it. What is it like? And to be able to think in terms of, okay, there will be somebody who will create an algorithm to create a soul. There is no such thing as that. A soul is basically an expression of the universe, and feeling is, it's just a chain of event that has happened over generations of your existence. So that's how we are interpreting emotions and feelings. AI is running a mathematical equation, and based on that data giving us an answer. That's what it is doing, right? So if you can think as a human being, that is your feeling an equation, a mathematical equation, or something that cannot be replicated, then that should give you that answer, that whether AI can feel something. Because mathematics cannot make you feel certain things. It's just going to give you an answer, in my opinion.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I think if you want to think about it in that scientific perspective, if you look at it neurologically, an emotion is just an expression of hormones in your brain developed largely through unconscious mind and subconscious mind interactions with you. Again, when you're thinking of like a gut feeling, I spoke again about this with Derek, but when you think about a gut feeling, it's not that you have this innate ability. It's that scientifically we've seen this, that your brain captures this data, but your conscious mind isn't capable of processing that data. So your unconscious mind gives you this feeling, this notion, this sense. But you could argue that is very mathematical. Is that what you're saying? That it's not that
I
it's that
don't.
feelings themselves are mathematical and it's just that's how we express it and not.
I don't think they are mathematical, because the feeling is not our feeling. It has been learned over generations. Like that gut feel is the sixth sense. So it takes ages to evolve. Our gut feel is what? It's based on learned response to dangerous situations, or where we expect more excitement, whatever it is. In order for AI to behave that way, at least for the next few hundred years, it will need to evolve. Humans have evolved for 200,000 years. In order for machines to have that kind of evolution, they will at least, hopefully, 200 at least.
That limits us by our evolutionary limitations, which is our physical form, right? If we had just a brain, which the AI technically does, maybe we wouldn't be so limited, right?
That's what I'm trying to say. It will happen fast. The evolution will happen fast after the singularity has been crossed, but it will still take time. It may develop feelings in maybe 200 years, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. It may reach.
So you're saying it relatively, considering 200,000, it's 1,000 the speed that it took humanity in that sense.
Yeah. If speculatively speaking, we can convert a feeling, true feeling, we can figure out, we can even figure out ourselves what a feeling is. If I ask you, can you define what feeling is? Can we define like what feeling is?
And it's subjective because we're using communication models to describe something that isn't tangible, right?
Exactly.
So that's always going to be a limiting factor. Maybe we can never explain that to a machine.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I want to keep you on the speculation track. Anything else you think that's going to come out of this whole AI revolution that we can't, maybe most people don't think about? Anything that's out of the ordinary in your mind that, oh, this is a cool thing I read?
I think, first of all, I think we are heading into a future where a human mind is going to fuse with artificial mind, right? So there's going to be like, when, as we speak about super intelligence and singularity, I think it'll become one with the human mind, so that we will be able to find more solutions. I believe due to this, we will be able to find extraterrestrial life, which will, I think, hopefully solve some problems, because we will realize that we are not so special. And otherwise, my speculation is like, it's going to be a really, hopefully, great world to live in, like less conflict.
Okay. So it's going to fix the problems rather than cause new ones.
It will cause some new ones, but I believe, as I said, based on my theories, m- resources will become available to more people. More people will be satisfied and happy, less dissatisfied in their life, and hence immune to any kind of conflict.
So it'll make the work-life balance, let's say, a bit more towards the life and less towards the work. And do you think the continuous nature of, okay, these big corporations are going to create these algorithms. Is that going to be the case? Or is there room for research labs or governments coming up with AI models that can match these as well?
Absolutely,
Or it's
absolutely.
going to be
See, that is the magic of technology, especially this technology. Look at the evidence, right? Bill Gates started Microsoft in 1975 in his garage and turned into the richest person on planet. And then Jeff Bezos did the same thing. He started a website called Amazon in 97 and in less than 20 years became the richest person. He overtook Walmart. Walmart has been around for 100 years. So technology is always the equalizer, enabler. Anybody can think of an idea, start a company based on AI. And the benefit is this time around, it is 100 times bigger technology wave. So if the internet, if we say started in say 1990, in the first 7 years, it did not produce $10 trillion, probably not even like 10 billion. But this time around, it's 10 trillion in the first 7 years. So the
right.
opportunity is so much bigger. Just people need to roll up their sleeve and say, okay, this is the idea, use AI to create this solution, and that will be the next big thing.
I think it's all about, yeah, jumping into the fray and using it. And it doesn't have to be this podcast is edited through an AI software, for example. You could use it to leverage whatever skills you don't necessarily have to make the most out of the skills that you have.
Exactly. I think in maybe 5 years, we will see the first company with one person team going public.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Because they will leverage everything else through AI. I like that because that could very much be the case. You use your skills, whatever they are. They should tangibly be more valuable than anyone else's, but then you use everything else. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add? Anything else on this before
No,
we?
this has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much. Thank
Same here.
you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. For the listeners who want to follow you,
Yeah. Please connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me you heard me on this podcast and how we can help you understand AI.
perfect. Sounds good. Okay. Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks. Those were some really interesting questions.
I appreciate it.